Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full preview for you of the first ever Tier 8 Soviet premium tank destroyer. It is the SU-130PM. And yeah, I guess the Wargaming weren't quite happy with the fact that it was a German premium tank, the Skorpion G, which is probably the most popular vehicle in the game. And so they've pretty much replicated it and put it on a Soviet chassis, or should I say inside the Soviet tech tree. And so stick around, I'm going to let you know everything you need to know about this upcoming tank, why it hits harder than the Skorpion G, and also how you can manage to unlock one yourself for free or at a meaty discount in this upcoming mission marathon. So firstly, before we begin, let me clarify that there are other Tier 8 premium tank destroyers in the game, like the SU-130, although I've only ever seen that on the European server in very rare occasions, but recently it was sold for the first time on the Asia server. And also there is the rather mystical KV-4 KTTS, but that's only been going around on super test accounts. And so the SU-130PM will be the first one that's available for public release, at least on the European server. So as I mentioned during the intro, the SU-130PM is practically a Soviet version of the Skorpion G. And so the quickest way to get you up to speed about this tank is just to do a direct comparison to it. So right off the bat, we see a damage per minute advantage to the Skorpion G of just over 100. However, those of you out there who think that Alpha is king will be happy to know that the SU-130's 130mm main armament has more alpha damage, 520 on its standard rounds, premium rounds, and also it's packing 660 damage on its high explosive rounds, while the Skorpion G is packing 490 on its armor piercing rounds and APCR rounds and 630 on its high explosive rounds. And so while you're not going to be hitting that much harder, it is definitely an advantage for the tank. Next up, penetration, practically identical here with the Skorpion G having 3 more millimeters on its standard rounds. But when we look at the premium rounds, this vehicle packs 320 compared to the Skorpion G's 311, so pretty much neck and neck here. However, interestingly enough, the SU-130PM's standard rounds have 1,030 meters a second shell velocity, which is an advantage over the Skorpion G. But again, this changes when you look at the heat rounds that the SU packs compared to the APCR rounds that the Skorpion G packs, where it has the advantage. Thankfully, this vehicle also packs more than enough ammunition to be able to get through the battle. 30 130mm rounds will give it an impressive potential damage, and you're going to be able to have your standard rounds for those tier 6, 7 and 8 matchups, and then your premium rounds for when you have to deal with tier 9 and tier 10 heavies. So now onto gun handling, and the SU kind of falls back behind the Skorpion G here with regards to aim time at 2.3 seconds, and its accuracy is massively behind at 0.35 compared to the laser finder that the Skorpion G has at 0.3, but its traverse and moving dispersions are actually better than the Skorpion G, so this is kind of going to make up for that aim time advantage, and it will make this tank better at YOLOing shells on the move. On paper, it looks like the SU-130 has amazing gun elevation at 37 degrees. However, upon closer inspection, we can see that this 37 degrees is only right over the side of the tank. And so if you do want to aim right up into the lower plate of the tank that's above you on the ridgeline, there is a very narrow gun arc all the way to the side that will allow you to do so. One of the best things about the Skorpion G is, of course, that 7 degrees of gun depression, and the SU gets that all the way across the front of the tank. However, a lot of you will be noticing that this vehicle has a limited gun arc. Unlike the Skorpion G that has a 360-degree turret rotation, this vehicle can aim 77.5 degrees to the left and to the right. And to visualize that, that's not quite a full turret turn. So that can be really frustrating when you want to, for example, drive alongside and shoot a tank. You're not going to be able to fully battleship this vehicle. And that also means that if you manage to track one of these tanks and then get behind it and then keep shooting it here, it's not going to be able to do anything to you. So take advantage of that when you fight these things. Next up, mobility. Great news for the SU here. 65 forwards, 20 backwards is awesome. This is more like a very fast medium tank. However, the power to weight ratio of the vehicle kind of lets it down at just under 17, which is pretty much going to make this very similar to the Skorpion G with regards to its mobility. However, it does have better tank traverse, and I did notice that this thing turns a lot faster than the Skorpion G will, and this agility comes in very handy for when you're trying to duck and weave to make an enemy miss their shot. Now onto armor, and it's really bad news for this tank. 20mm at the front, 15 at the side. That means everything that hits this vehicle will be overmatching it, and that's great news if you also want to track the tank and overmatch the vehicle. If you aim from this kind of an angle, you're still going to take the tracks off, and then your shell's going to enter the vehicle afterwards. And further Furthermore, seeing how this thing is pretty much open top, I can imagine this is going to be an artillery's dream to have a fully aimed shot at one of these. And finally, a passing mention should be made to the 1,100 hit points this vehicle has, slightly less than the Skorpion G, and the 360 meters view range that will most likely mean that you will have to take coated optics with an exceptional crew on this vehicle, or most likely binoculars if you don't have a very good Soviet tank destroyer crew. Now, one thing you can't see from Tanks GG is the camo rating of a vehicle, and that's one of the most important statistics for a tank destroyer because it allows them to get into position while hidden and stay hidden while there. As the Skorpion G is a very tall tank, that means it is easily spotted, and it has, with a fully loaded out crew and things like chocolate, less than 15% camo rating while it's moving and 22% camo rating while it's stationary. Now, ladies and gents, boys and girls, the SU-130PM as a very short tank has nearly 25% camo while moving, and it's got 39% camo while it's stationary. This is a huge advantage for the SU-130PM that will allow it to be able to get into positions without being detected, way better than the Skorpion. And if you're so inclined, you could even drop the gun laying drive that I choose to use on this vehicle for a camo net, and you'd be packing about 55% camo rating while you're stationary. And finally, for anyone who's wondering how good this vehicle will be as a crew trainer for your Soviet tank destroyers, it has 5 crew members, which is the same as the Object 268 version 4, and also for anyone who still plays that tank, the Object 268. But anyway, you know what? I think that's quite enough jibber jabber. Let's get stuck into the gameplay. So here we go, rolling out on Minsk, a very fitting way to christen the SU-130PM, and this was the first game I played in this tank on my premium account, as I'm going to have to be calling it now, my original account, right? Now get an idea of the mobility of this vehicle, and look, we just barged past that T-44 there, and we even managed to traverse the vehicle. Did you see how it just whipped itself across? It's got much better traverse speed than the Skorpion G. However, well, it's very fast downslope at 65 kilometers an hour, and it's pretty good at pulling back at 20. Yeah, the power to weight ratio of the vehicle didn't really look very good going up the hill there, and you're going to see as we're going to climb over towards the right here, just get an idea of the mobility. It's not like a fast medium. It's kind of more of a slower medium, a bit like what the Type 59 used to be, but enough to be able to rush into position. And once you got here, I'm just thinking, who is going to get the christening of that 130mm shell from this tank? And what better target? Skorpion G. All right, right through the kind of like the vase there, or the pot, I guess, kind of like a pot on a pillar, and we shut down the Skorpion G right from the beginning of this game. Is that very fitting for this tank? Yeah, this tank is kind of probably the Soviet Skorpion G, and the fact that we managed to just obliterate one there, well, was a pretty good start for this vehicle. We aimed to the side of the tank there as well, so not only did we hit the tracks because of the very weak side armor and the relatively large caliber of our gun, we overmatch and we deal damage to the vehicle as well as taking the tracks off, and so we pick up some tracking there. And look, we're out spotting the Reveillerise on the enemy team, and you're going to do that once you've got 25% camo rating on the move. That thing's a big old M4, and unless he's got an exceptionally skilled crew, I'm easily going to be able to outspot him. Of course, this vehicle does have 360 meters view range, and keep in mind that I am on my personal account, and I think my crew skills are at about 4 or 5 on this account. So I'm using things like situational awareness, recon, I'm using a premium consumable, I'm using coated optics and whatnot. But I feel like that is what a lot of people are going to be taking on this tank. It's a premium vehicle. You're most likely going to have an exceptionally skilled crew for it. And if you don't have one immediately, then you're going to be able to get one eventually after a few games. And I just felt so confident in this tank with firing early, I guess, against the Reveillerise there. I'm wondering why he wasn't shooting me. I was almost waiting for him to fire so that I could fully aim the shell, but once I felt like I had an opportunity to take him out with the pretty good 2.3 seconds aim time and not bad dispersion values, we just shut the guy down. And even though I was being pushed around a little bit there by the T-28 prototype on my team, I still hit the IS-6 Black Edition. Gosh, oh yeah, it was just Black Friday recently. Poor little lamb probably bought that tank. Going to see one of these in the gift shop probably in the next week or so and be like, oh, why did I do that? Well, I don't know. The IS-6 is probably a lot more new player friendly than this thing is going to be. But the Skorpion G is the most popular tank on the European server. I think it's in more games than any other tank, which is absolutely outrageous when you think about it. So I guess this thing is going to be immensely popular. Maybe not so much on this server, but I can imagine it being massively popular on the RU server as well. So aiming, definitely not the best, and I am using a gun laying drive on this tank, but still enough to hit the Pantera, and I'm quite surprised that I don't get spotted. I thought I'd be spotted against the Pantera here, and I'm still not spotted, so now I'm... Oh, just now I got spotted, actually, but maybe that was... Do you think that was one of the tanks on the enemy team? Yeah, that was the FE-4202 who saw me there. That wasn't actually the Pantera. And a second round into him, hitting him first for 552, hitting him again for 491. These are big, old hits. And does that actually mean that this is the hardest hitting premium tank in the game? I think it does. I think the Skorpion G with 490 Alpha was the hardest hitting premium tank, right? So that means that the 520 on this tank is going to be the new Alpha King of premiums. Interesting stuff. But is the vehicle going to be crazy OP? It's hard to say, really. I've only played the vehicle a few times, and it's even hard for me to gauge about how overpowered these tanks are going to be for the majority of players. When I look at the Skorpion G, however, well, you know what, we'll actually save that for a little bit later on. Let's focus at what's at hand now. And I was getting a bit greedy. I was feeling that blood rush. I was feeling those big old alpha shells. And now we're noticing how well this vehicle does under fire. And the answer is not very well at all, as the T-28 pens us, but luckily he looks like he's using the babiest of baby guns on that tank. Is he really using a 90mm on the T-28? Oh, goodness gracious. Must be a stock tank there. We also get hit by the 50 TP, and luckily he low-rolled as well, so we still got a good old slab of our hit points left. But you also notice that because you can't turn the turret on this vehicle fully, I couldn't actually run away from those vehicles while firing at them, whereas if I was playing something like a Skorpion G, I can do that. Ooh, this .35 accuracy rears its ugly head. Not great stuff. This thing is not a legendary sniper like the Skorpion G is, or a variety of other tank destroyers at the tier. But, you know, when you hit so hard, oh, come on, don't quite snipe in there. I think this vehicle's going to be a bit of a funny one, because at very long ranges, with its relatively okay penetration, but not exactly godlike penetration, at least these days, of 243, I think it's going to struggle to hit the weak points with that .35 base accuracy, and even when it does, it's probably going to bounce quite a lot. But then again, thinking about it, I'm not sure about all of you out there, but quite often when I get hit by Skorpion G drivers, they're not using the standard armor piercing rounds. They are dabbing that 2 key. So I'm just thinking about what the heat rounds on this tank are going to be like. 520 alpha damage, 320mm of penetration at tier 8. That's enough to butter the front of pretty much every turret in the game. That's kind of like tier 10 medium tank penetration when we're thinking about it. That's pretty beefy. And did you see how the searchlight on the front of the vehicle is actually reflecting the things behind it? It's not quite this RTX shenanigans that Nvidia are putting out with their new 20 series graphics cards, but at least it's something and a bit of a fun thing on the vehicle if you're looking for those kind of novelties. Anyway, just finishing off this game right now with a shot into the 53 TP. That's the final tank dealt with, and 4,300 damage in just under 7 minutes with a good amount of spotting as well and a good amount of tracking. And I think that's what this tank is going to be great for. You can be a lot more cheeky in this vehicle than you can be in the Skorpion G with its increased camo rating due to its low profile nature. And of course, if you can stay hidden with a vehicle, it really doesn't even matter if it's a complete glass cannon, because it's never going to get hit in the first place. So our first game in this tank was an ace tanker with a high caliber and a Confederate medal, although that probably doesn't mean much because not a lot of people are playing it at the moment. Nevertheless, 1,265 base experience points, hitting 10 out of the 13 shots that we fired, and of those, 9 managed to penetrate. I think that's about normal for about .35 accuracy, but lo and behold, it does have full premium potential, and so I made 147,000 credits this game, although for some reason it didn't auto resupply my ammunition. I guess I didn't have that selected. So thinking about it, I probably spent about 15,000 credits on ammunition, and we also had a reward for completing some kind of event, so we've got to take 35,000 away from that total. It's about 110,000 credits profit for a game that just felt very easy, right? And so the SU-130PM, is it going to be completely crazy overpowered? Well, I think there's enough things about this tank that are actually worse than the Skorpion G, like its accuracy, its damage per minute, and the shell velocity on its premium rounds that are probably going to hold the tank back a little bit. And while the vehicle clearly has other areas where it's undoubtedly going to perform better than the Skorpion G, for all that I hate that tank, and I'm talking about the Skorpion G right now, On the European server, it has a 50.23% win ratio. The Stridsvagn S1 is higher, the WZ-121G is way higher than that. And so that kind of makes me feel, considering how similar these two vehicles are, that we probably don't have to worry that this thing is going to be a new defender. However, on the other hand, as this tank is going to be available for everybody who manages to complete a mission marathon over the next couple of weeks, that most likely means that we're going to see a lot of them in the matchmaker. And for me personally, a vehicle like the Skorpion G or the SU-130PM doesn't really promote the most fun kind of world of tanks. Sitting at the back, sitting in a safe position, waiting for somebody to make an aggressive play, to make a push, and then you punish them really hard. Now, if that's your playstyle, I'm not going to judge you, but the more vehicles that Wargaming add into the matchmaker that are like that, it's only going to increase the campiness. And so all in all, the SU-130PM, the Soviet Skorpion. Something that while I'm looking forward to playing a little bit of myself, I'm kind of not looking forward to having them filling the matchmaker over the Christmas period. And so that's it, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this full preview of the tank. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And stay tuned to the channel as I'm going to be giving you a full review of the mission marathon and give you an idea of exactly how long it's going to take you to complete it to suggest whether it's even worth trying. And let me know what you think about the SU-130PM in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.